Hi friends, in this lesson we're going to talk about 21 phrases you can immediately use to help improve your answer for IELTS Writing Task 2. Okay, we will start these phrases in just 1 second, but I want to say if you're new to this channel, hi, I'm teacher Luke from EnglishTestReady.com. If you're looking for a qualified teacher to help you pass the IELTS test, this is the place to go to. So visit that website. I'm also teaching there. Okay, the first set of phrases is about opinions. As you know, on the IELTS Writing Task 2, you are required to give your opinion now and again. And a mistake I see a lot of students make is that they just repeat the same phrase. They say, of course, in my opinion. But there are different ways to express your opinion, so let's look at these ones now. So one easy phrase you can use is from my point of view or in my view. You could also say, I'm inclined to believe that, or my impression is that. Another good one is in my perspective. These are great phrases you can use to signal to the IELTS examiner that you're now going to share your opinion. And like I mentioned, it's good to use a variety of phrases in your IELTS Writing Task 2. Let's take a look at some full examples now. From my point of view, governments and local authorities should ban fast food companies from advertising to young people. Another great way to talk about your opinion is by first mentioning the opposite point of view and then sharing yours. And you can do this by using this phrase. Some people argue that, however, in my perspective. I think this is a great phrase because it shows balance in your answer. It shows that you've thought about the opposite point of view, but you disagree. If you can, I do recommend you use this phrase in your IELTS Writing Task 2. And here's a sample sentence. Some people argue that children should be allowed to eat whatever they want. However, I'm inclined to believe that children's diets need to be closely supervised. Okay, now let's talk about how you can develop or extend your ideas on this test. It's important on this writing question not just to give your opinion and then move on. Instead, you do want to develop and extend your idea. And a good way to do this is to mention a similar point that's similar to your opinion. So what are some phrases you can use to do that? Let's take a look here. In addition, or additionally, moreover, adding to my previous point. Another good one is not only, but also. As I mentioned on the exam, you want to extend your answers as much as possible because it shows the examiners that you're able to talk about all of your opinions well in English. And these phrases are a great way to extend your opinions. And here are some example ideas of how to use them. In addition, children who eat a lot of fast food are more at risk from serious health issues. Another example, not only is fast food unhealthy for children, but it can also cause serious health issues. Not only, but also is a great way to extend your ideas because in the not only section of the sentence, you mention your previous idea, and then after, but also, you mention your new idea. On top of that, it adds a lot of emphasis to your writing, which is also a good thing to do. Another great idea to extend your answers is by adding examples. And as a teacher myself, when I see my students give examples, I think that's fantastic. However, I see a lot of the phrase, for example. Of course, that phrase is great to use once, maybe twice, but if you're given lots of examples in your writing, then you want to use different phrases. So instead of for example, you can use for instance, to give a clear example, or a clear example of this is. You could also use to illustrate. These phrases are great to use instead of for example. Let's look at some full sentences and then I'll talk a bit more about them. A clear example of this is heart disease, since children who eat a lot of fast food are more prone to heart-related health issues later in life. To illustrate, a recent study found that children who eat fast food on a daily basis are 15% more likely to have heart-related issues when they become adults. To illustrate is normally followed by a statistic or a number. If you noticed in my example, I said 15%. That refers to the statistic I'm talking about. You might also want to know that you don't have to use accurate statistics in your exam. You can just make them up like I did here. I didn't know that, I just wrote it off the top of my head. It's probably not true. But that's fine. This test is a test of your English knowledge, not your ability to memorize facts and figures. Next up, we have talking about a condition. A condition basically means if something happens first, then something else can happen second. Conditions mostly start with the word if, so if you know the if grammatical structures, you know how to use a conditional sentence. But not all conditions start with the word if. You can use other phrases as well. After if, probably the most common is provided that. You can also use as long as, and the negative condition is unless. These phrases work in exactly the same way as if sentences. They signal that something should happen before something else happens next. Let me show you what I mean. Provided that children eat a balanced diet, having 1 or 2 fast food meals per week should not cause any health issues. Unless governments ban fast food companies advertising to children, health issues among the young will continue to increase. And of course, we should look at phrases for ending your answer, the conclusion. In this exam, I sometimes see students write "in a nutshell" or "finally," and these are not acceptable for a conclusion in an academic essay. They are too informal. The best ones to use for an academic essay are these ones here. I would always play it safe and just use one of these 3 phrases to conclude your essay. No one is going to disagree with these phrases. Okay, now you need to practice your writing, and this is the video here you need for that. I'll see you there. Bye.